Hi there, everybody, and welcome back to another one of my videos. And I'm going to be going over some statistics that were recently put out as lately and, well, as recently as, let's see here. Oh, where is it? I doesn't say, but as recently as this past month. And these statistics are pretty startling, and, well, I wouldn't exactly say startling, because those of us that are transgender are very aware of this stuff ourselves, but try and make this pretty clear. New York Times did a pretty interesting breakdown and article on hate crimes against the LGBT community since the whole shooting rampage at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando. And one of the interesting things I came across is that in 2005, hate crimes per million adults, go figure, in 2005, Jewish people were more likely to have hate crimes committed against them. Second was people in the LGBTQ community, then blacks, Muslims, Hispanics, Asians, whites. In 2014, the top two were reversed. Hate crimes were more likely to be committed against people in the LGBT community as opposed to Jewish people or people of the Jewish religion, which are one and the same. And then it follows Muslims, blacks, Asians, Hispanics, and whites, which gives you kind of an idea. And that information was collected from the FBI. And as we all know, the Republicans, which I consider to be a bunch of ignorant dumbasses, tended to look at the whole thing with the shooting at Pulse as being an act of terrorism, while Democrats and liberals and everybody in the LGBT community took it as being both a terrorist act and a hate crime, which is something that Republicans aren't willing to admit, that there is this whole problem, that people in the LGBT community do end up having this going on, which is a sad state of affairs when you come right down to it. Though, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, majority of society became more tolerant of the LGBT community. Some of those who opposed it became more radical, which is not surprising in itself, given everything that we as a group have to deal with. Along with that, according to the FBI, law enforcement, local law enforcement, tends to either not or underreport violence towards people in the LGBT community, in particular those that are transgender. That's why it tends to be grossly underreported in the news and everywhere else, not to mention statistically. Yeah, which is very much a sad state of affairs when you come right down to it. But also it feeds into the whole thing of why transgender people tend to be very hesitant to go in front of law enforcement and even discuss with law enforcement acts of violence. And, we need to try and get the police more active in understanding that we are individuals, we do need their protection, but also we need their understanding. Now, moving along, there was a survey or a study done, more in the way of a survey, on transgender people. One survey was done, well, both surveys were done in conjunction with the National Center for Transgender Equality, along with, I have it right here too, National Gay and Lesbian Task Force. The one that was published, well, one of the ones that was published on Transgender Equality's site was for the whole country. Which basically puts it as, that transgender people are 4 times more likely to have household incomes at or below $10,000 a year, which, believe me, I know that feeling. And as far as schools are concerned, K through 12, there's been an increase I would consider it to be an increase with harassment, physical assault, sexual violence, and with the harassment it's 78%, physical assault 35%, sexual violence 12%, and 15%, because of all of this, end up leaving school or college. When it comes to employment, and you have to remember, these are from the national one. Transgender people experience unemployment twice the rate of the national unemployment rate. And for individuals that are black transgender, it's 4 times that rate, which is insane. Literally, it's insane. As far as work environments, there has been high rates of individuals experiencing harassment, mistreatment, discrimination, reports of losing their job due to being transgender. But also being harassed on the job. And the sad part about it is that, and this is something that personally I could have seen myself doing a long time ago. And this is the kicker for me, is that 16% said that they had to go into what's known as an underground economy, which is sex work and dealing drugs. A vast majority of transgender people felt or feel uncomfortable doing their jobs. I know that when I first transitioned back in 2004, I felt that discomfort myself, but I pressed on. It got easier, believe me. Housing and everything, it tends to be higher than general, than the overall population. Being refused, and this is anywhere between 11 and say 29% across the board. I'm going to just read this stuff off. Being refused a home or apartment, being evicted, experiencing homelessness at some point, not really being able to have access to homeless shelters, being harassed by shelter staff or residents, being turned away, sexual assault in these facilities, public accommodations, meaning restaurants, hotels, places like that. Over 50% of respondees reported harassment or being disrespected. Suicide, that is attempted suicide and suicide rates are, as we all know, well above the national average. Here it states 41% compared to 1.6% of the general public. I can go on and on and on with all this stuff, and you will get the idea that transgender people, just like the gay and lesbian community a long time ago, had the same problems. They still do. I'm not going to belittle them, because they're in the same, well, we're all in the same boat together, no matter how you look at it. And this stuff needs to change. Attitudes need to change. Fortunately, it's happening, but the downside is that it's a slow process. And we need more people that are transgender and those that are aligned with the LGBT community to be there to say, this isn't right. These things need to change. We're all the same people. We need to live together. We need to understand each other. We need to accept each other. I've always been a sci-fi buff. I love sci-fi. But in particular, I've always liked and enjoyed the Star Trek series on the overall. And there is a Vulcan philosophy, which is infinite diversity and infinite combination. Idic. And we are that idic. And the idic is what should bind us together. It needs to bind us together. Because without that, we all fail. So, for now, I'm going to be signing off. I will be continuing this conversation later on with others. And I would really appreciate what other people think and what they have to say. So, until next time, live long and prosper.